Today on Mr. Media, I'll welcome author and internet entrepreneur Guy Kawasaki back to the show. His new book, Enchantment, The Art of Changing Hearts, Minds, and Actions. Stick around. There's no one more enchanting than this guy. So much media, so little time.
Yeah.
Who keeps track of it all?
Not me.
No, that would be me, Guy.
Yeah.
This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview. You know, MrMedia.com, MRmedia.com. Stop by and check it out. There are more than 700 archived celebrity and pop culture interviews for your listening pleasure. The show is brought to you today by Audible. Audible is offering Mr. Media listeners a free audiobook download and a 14-day trial offer to give you a chance to check out their very cool service. I love listening to books on tape. If you've never tried it before, actors or sometimes the authors themselves read to you. It's great for the commute, the beach, or even unwinding before bed. You can choose a free audiobook from Audible's enormous library of titles, including today's top entrepreneurial bestsellers by my guest, Guy Kawasaki, including Enchantment, The Art of the Start, How to Drive Your Competition Crazy, or my personal favorite, Reality Check. In fact, listen to this excerpt from Reality Check, written by Guy Kawasaki and read by Paul Bomer.
Guy is craven enough that he doesn't really care whether I read his book or not. As he put it to me, all he wants is a famous name to put on the cover, and pretty much everyone else turned him down, and so he had to resort to calling me, and so, fine. I let him beg a little bit, and then I made him do some humiliating things like stand on one leg for half an hour and jump up and down and make strange noises, and then I said, okay, enough already, you total freak. I'll write you something. So this is it. My official endorsement. Reality Check is by far the best book ever written about the Valley. It's an important and necessary work, one that should be required reading in every business school in the country. I wish this book had been around when I was starting Apple in my garage back in 1976. I'm sure I wouldn't have read it, but still it would have been nice if it had been around back then to help out all those other people who wanted to start companies but couldn't figure out some of the more subtle aspects of business, like the fact that you need to charge more money for your products than it costs you to make them. That's a really super important lesson.
You could also download The Profiler, written by famed criminal profiler Pat Brown and yours truly, which Pat will read to you personally. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/radio. Again, that's audibletrial.com/radio for your free audiobook. Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience that thinks Guy Kawasaki is still being paid to be the chief evangelist for Apple, when, in fact, he's been doing it for free for years. In the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. I defy you to pick any page in a Guy Kawasaki book, any page at all, and not come away a little smarter, a little more inspired, or at least a little entertained. And that's setting the bar pretty low. I found often that there's too much of a takeaway when I read one of his books, particularly the last two, Reality Check and the latest, Enchantment, The Art of Changing Hearts, Minds, and Actions. Now, his wife might think that he needs to take out the garbage or otherwise help around the house more often. But as a reader and a fan, I think Kawasaki does too much already. Frankly, he's making the rest of us look lazy based on his productivity. Now, there are the books, 10 and counting, the businesses, including alltop.com, the keynote speaking engagements, the blog for American Express, and his founding partnership in Garage Technology Ventures. Enough already, Guy. Enough. He still speaks so highly of Apple, where he rose to fame as its chief evangelist more than 24 years ago, that many people think he's still on the payroll. And he's not doing much to dissuade anybody by having Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak quoted on the front cover saying, "Read this book cover to cover. Read this book to create a company as enchanting as Apple." There it is, right there. And it doesn't even say Steve Wozniak; it says Woz. So you know that these two have something going on where they're, you get the sense that there's still a connection there. Anyway, in Enchantment, Kawasaki dissects enchantment like a high school student would a frog. He makes it clear that a concept that may seem ephemeral to many is actually quite easily studied, learned, and duplicated. You just need the desire to start. And with that, Guy Kawasaki, welcome back to Mr. Media.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's quite the introduction.
Well, you put in your dollar, you get a dollar's worth, right?
That's $1.10.
You're kind. And it really is nice to have you back. Last time we did audio only. This time we have you for video. It's good to actually see you this time.
We're so hip, man.
Now, I'm a little concerned, though. I just noticed over your shoulder there's actually a stack of these books.
Yeah.
You can't sell them? You can't give them away? I mean, if we tilt the screen a little bit, are we going to see even more of them? What's the deal, Guy?
No, I send out a lot of autographed copies, so I need a stack of them where I can just reach back and grab one.
Oh, here. You know what? Let me give you mine. Could you sign this one for me?
Actually, I have a way for people to get them signed. I have a website where people just give me their address, and I sign the cover, and I send just the cover because,
good.
I sign the cover, not the inside of the book.
Oh, okay. But so it's not iteleport.com?
No, not yet.
All right. Well, listen, I got to ask you something before we really get into the meat of the book. I dog-ear the heck out of your books, and it occurred to me, whose books do you dog-ear?
You know, I very seldom read nonfiction.
Really?
Yeah, the only time I read nonfiction is when I am actually writing a book, because then I have to read all the competition. And so I'll show you some.
He went that away, folks.
Yeah, so I'll be back. So, these are some of the books that I read to write Enchantment.
Okay.
So this is a book called Influence, and you can see the dog ears there, or the post-its. This is Sway. This is by my friends Chip and Dan Heath. This is a book called Switch. And a book that really influenced me, though there's no dog ears in this one, is this book, Psychology of Influence by Bob Cialdini.
You know what? We have him in common. He helped me on my second book, Why Men Watch Football.
Yeah. I have to say, the very interesting thing about him is arguably my book, Enchantment, competes with his book, Influence, but he has just bent over backwards to help me. He gave me a blurb. He has sold my book on his website. He's really a mensch. He really, although he's Italian, he really has helped me a lot. I was truly amazed at how generous he was.
Well, I know it's funny. I wasn't even going to bring it up, but and I wrote Why Men Watch Football back in 1993. He couldn't have been promoting my book on the internet then. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I didn't really realize at the time how highly regarded he was until after the book came out, and then it was like, yeah, how did I get so much of his time to do this book? I mean, he's quite a guy.
And his wife is even more helpful. Babette, yeah, she's really, that's a nice family.
Yeah, well, it's a small world. And we also share an editor, Mr. Zackheim. We both worked for him.
Adrian?
Yeah.
You and I? Or
we haven't
you?
Worked for him together, but we've both done work for him.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway, all right, let's get down to the real reason you're here, which is not just to entertain me, but to talk about your book. What made you think, and I think correctly, that there was enough that had not been written about either enchantment or that had not been broken down in a way that people in this internet age could really absorb and put it to practice?
Well, there's two things that I have the advantage on. One is social media. So, Dale Carnegie could not have written about Twitter in 1930. So I have the advantage of being able to write about Twitter and Facebook and blogging and email. So that's one thing. I wanted to have a book that was truly up to date with the technology. And the second thing is that I think many people have written books about influence and persuasion. I can show you a whole shelf full, but they take it from the standpoint of studying it as social psychology and analyzing it. And I do that, of course, but my orientation is tactical, which is, you don't need to become an expert in social psychology and the operation of this particular research. You just need to know that if you do this, you might get this. So if you there's a whole study about, if you give people too many choices in jams, they actually buy fewer bottles of jam. So, you could spend pages and pages explaining that, or I could just tell you, listen, on your website, you may think that more is better, but more might be less. So put up fewer choices. Don't confuse people. Let them just pick from a handful. You'll sell more stuff than before. And so my thing is purely tactical.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things I admire about the way you've done these last two books, Enchantment and Reality Check, is I find some people have a real knack for breaking down things into their essence. Whether it's here's the 5 most important elements of this.
Yeah.
Here's the 10, or here's the anecdote that really explains that. You do that really well. Some people don't do it. They would take 10 pages to do what you do in a page and a half.
I think maybe the influence of Twitter. When I have to communicate my whole world in 140 characters, so I'm trained to be brief. And also I speak a lot, and one thing I know for sure is the optimal size font on a PowerPoint slide is 30 points. So if you set your text to 30 points, there's not a hell of a lot of text you can type on a PowerPoint slide. And so all of this, the 140 character limit, the 30-point font limit, all of that is training me, less is more.
Now this book is a fraction of the size of Reality Check.
Yes.
Did it seem like a great breath of fresh air for you to come down? Because that is it's a great book. People haven't seen it. You really, if you're in any business of any kind, you're going to find this book, Reality Check, extremely helpful. But it's like a dictionary. It's
it's
big,
470 pages. Yeah. Well, here, one second. Gotta go off camera again.
That's all right. We were all kind of curious what brand of printer you have there hanging on the shelf.
So, whoa, almost fell off. So this is, obviously.
Here we go. Look at this.
First of all, that's, Enchantment is not 6x9. I wanted it to be a smaller, easier size. Mm-hmm. But then this is the difference in thickness. Yeah. So Reality Check is probably 2 times the thickness. Reality Check is sort of the Guy Kawasaki anthology. It's everything I've written that was, I thought, important at the time. Mm-hmm. And it took the best of my books, the best of my blogs, the best of everything, and just put it all together. Oh, my wife is paying us a visit.
Hi.
Hi there.
Oh, she didn't come to see me. She just picked up something on a printer. Yeah.
Nice
Cameo appearance by Beth Kawasaki.
And now, folks, you know why I switched to video this year. You gotta love video. That was good.
What were we talking about?
I don't know. Lady walks into the picture, and all the guys' heads turn, and they lose their marbles. We were kind of talking about this was a smaller book. It's more. I guess it's more focused on enchantment.
Well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a classic, a la How to Win Friends and Influence People. So How to Win Friends and Influence People is not that thick either. So I want this book to be not just for hardcore entrepreneurs and business people. I want this to be a manual for life. So it's a different goal there.
You get another thing I really like is you get a lot of people tell you their stories, and what I wondered is, are they coming to you telling you stories? Are you seeking them out? And one of my favorite examples is the Mike Stevens story in Enchantment. It's the guy who bought a print shop in Fargo, North Dakota.
And his father helped him, yeah.
Well, he had to, because he got like a day into it, right? And he realized, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah. So what I did is I found that when I read articles in magazines, I often like the gray bar more than I like the article. And so I wanted to have the equivalent of a gray bar in Enchantment. And so I thought, what would be a great gray bar? And it would be people's personal stories of enchantment in their own words, not me describing them. So I blogged about this and I tweeted about this and I requested that people send their stories of personal enchantment to me. And I got hundreds of stories. And of the hundreds, I picked 12 to put in at the end of the chapter. So in terms of like a food metaphor, this is just, the chapter is the apple pie and the personal story is the scoop of vanilla ice cream.
All right, so note to self, get 300,000 followers on Twitter and then ask them to send in stories.
Well, yeah, just for accuracy, it's 400,000,
Oh,
but yeah,
I
yeah,
looked
and
earlier. I thought it said
but
three. I'm sorry.
well, there's two accounts, but even more accurately, uh, the social media community, they provided personal stories. They provided examples. I would say, okay, so here's the principle. Can you think of an example of a company or a person or a product or something that illustrates this principle? So that's another thing they provided. And the third thing they provided is that right towards the end of the book, I sent out a call saying I'd like to have beta testers. I need copy editing. I need content editing. So just send me your profile, and I'll pick some copy editors and editors. And I got hundreds of requests, and I sent out about 60 copies. Actually, I sent out about 100 copies, and about 60 people actually provided me feedback to the manuscript.
Free.
So yeah, for free. Yeah.
Wow. And that's amazing. And you also had sort of a contest to design the cover.
Yes, I had
I mean,
like I'm just a social media whore. What can I tell you?
well, and I think I want to take back what I said at the top of the show. I don't think you're doing any damn work at all. Folks, I think we need take two, and we'll just start over from the top.
The important thing is that you give the illusion of working hard. Not that you work hard. Jeez, get with it there, Bob.
Thank you, Doug Kawasaki Henning. Yes. It's the illusion. Uh, so, all right, so for people who, let me ask you this. For people who still don't get enchantment, can you take one big example, like one big company example, and explain it, and then one small example that you found
Sure.
of how it works?
Well, the biggest example and the easiest example is, of course, Apple. So,
Apple? I'm sorry.
yeah,
Apple?
yeah.
Apple?
It's a little startup in Cupertino.
Oh, those
So,
guys. Okay.
so imagine most computer companies, right? They bludgeon you, they promote you, they sell to you, they do whatever they can so that you buy a laptop, right? So they're trying to close a transaction. By contrast, Apple enchants you. Apple sells you on this dream of coolness and productivity and creativity. So you buy a Macintosh laptop. And then you figure out, oh, I need to buy an iPhone. And then you buy an iPad. And then you start using iTunes. And you start using iBooks. And the next thing you know, you hear that Apple's going to release a new iPad tomorrow at 8 a.m. So midnight on the night before, you go out there, you camp in front of the store so you can be the first one. And so that's the difference between enchantment and sales.
I was just, as you were saying that, I was thinking of a really good example that a lot of people might know of someone who got enchanted by Apple. Kind of late in the game. I was surprised. Howard Stern, the radio guy, I think the end of last year, early this year, he had resisted Apple his entire life, and then someone showed him an iPhone.
Yeah.
And he was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I think maybe he saw an iPad, and he started playing around with one, and then he started playing with one, I think, and then he got the other, and then he decided, how have I been missing this my whole life? And he threw out all the PCs, and he got everything Apple. He got laptops, he got desks. Now, of course, he has the money to do that, but I thought it was interesting that the enchantment hit him 25 years late, but all at once. And now he's all in. That's all he talks about.
Well, I have another thing to show you then. Let's see here.
Folks, actually, Guy is very shy. That's why he keeps.
Yeah. So I have this sticker made. It says, "Reluctance is futile." So that's the story. Eventually we'll get you.
So Star Trek Classic or Star Trek Next Generation? What are we talking here?
Well, that's resistance is futile. I didn't want to get any trademark issues.
All right, now what about a small outfit that most people wouldn't know, but that you found also gets enchantment in pretty much the same way that Apple does?
Well, a small outfit that gets you the way Apple does is kind of an oxymoron.
Well, no, not that gets you the way Apple does, but that just understands it. You've got so many examples of operations in here. Just something more modest that more people can relate to.
Well, here I'll give you a very good example. My daughter's 9 years old, and so she has, I swear she took a class from Bob Cialdini. So what she'll do is she'll say, Dad, can we go to Cheeky Monkey, this local toy store? And whenever you go to Cheeky Monkey, that's like minimum $20, right? So of course I say no, being the good hard ass dad that I am. So then she comes right back and she says, well, then can we go get yogurt? So what she's done is she just played me. She said she made me feel guilty for saying no to a $20 toy run. So now how can I turn her down for a $4 yogurt run, right? So that's another very useful tool when you want to influence your father.
I can see that. I can see that. Another way I would look at that as someone who sells books, writes and sells books, is I would say to it, well, Cheeky Monkey, I've got to sell 5 books to cover your trip to Cheeky Monkey. But to go for yogurt, that's only 1 book royalty.
It's true.
Yeah.
But you are obviously getting a higher royalty from Adrian than I am.
I don't know what to say. I doubt it. Somehow I doubt it.
As soon as I hang up, I'm calling Adrian.
Well, I'm going to give you that. I'm going to give you that opportunity now because we're going to take a little break. This is Bob Andelman, and you're listening to and hopefully watching the Mr. Media interview with author Guy Kawasaki, whose latest book is Enchantment: The Art of Changing Hearts, Minds, and Actions. And we'll be right back after Guy calls his editor.